That sound right there? If you ask your parents or grandparents about it, watch their faces light up. That ringtone takes them back to a totally different time. A time when phones looked nothing like the ones we use today. Today, we're going on an adventure through time. We're going to explore something pretty cool. Phones that had actual buttons you could press. Real, clicky, physical buttons. Not smooth glass screens like the phones in your pocket right now. These were phones with personality. Phones that could survive almost anything. Phones that changed the world before smartphones came along. Let's find out what life was like when phones had buttons. So what exactly are we talking about when we say button phones? Well, imagine a phone that doesn't have a big touchscreen. Instead, it has a bunch of small buttons with numbers and letters on them. Usually 12 main buttons, sometimes more. These phones were popular from around 1995 to about 2012. That might sound like ancient history, but it really wasn't that long ago. Your parents definitely used these phones. Your older siblings might have had one too. Button phones came in all shapes and sizes. Some were shaped like candy bars, just a rectangle you held up to your ear. Some were flip phones that open and close like a tiny book. Some were slider phones where you could push the screen up to reveal a hidden keyboard underneath. Each type felt different. Each type was special in its own way. Here's something really cool about button phones that touchscreens just can't copy. The feeling. When you press a button on these old phones, you actually felt something. The button would push down under your finger. You'd hear a little click, and you knew 100% without any doubt that the phone understood what you wanted. Touchscreens are smooth and flat. Sometimes when you tap them, nothing happens. Sometimes they think you tapped when you didn't. It can be confusing. But buttons were honest. Press down, feel the click, done. Simple as that. And here's something wild. People who use these phones a lot could actually text without looking. They memorized where every button was. Their fingers just knew. Imagine texting in your pocket while walking, without ever looking at your phone. That was totally normal back then. And flip phones? Oh! Flip phones were the coolest. When you finished a phone call, you didn't just tap a button on a screen. You snapped that phone shut. It made a satisfying sound, like closing a book after finishing a really good story. If you were mad at someone on the phone, you could snap it closed extra hard. It was the most dramatic way to end a call ever invented. Now, here's where things get really interesting. How did people type text messages with only 12 buttons? Look at any old phone keypad. The number 2 button also has the letters A, B, and C on it. The number 3 has D, E, and F, and so on. Every number button had 3 or 4 letters sharing space with it. In the beginning, to type a letter, you had to press the same button multiple times. Want to type the letter A? Press the 2 button once. Want to type B? Press it twice. Want to type C? Press it 3 times. So if you want to type a simple word like hi, you have to press the 4 button twice for H, then the 4 button 3 times for I. That's 5 button presses just for a 2-letter word. Typing a whole message took forever. Your thumb got tired. It was like a workout for your fingers. But then something amazing was invented. It was called T9, which stands for text on 9 keys. This was like magic for texting. With T9, you only pressed each button once, and the phone would guess what word you were trying to type. Want to type hello? Just press 4-3-5-5-6. 5 presses, 5 letters. The phone figured out the rest. People who mastered T9 could type super fast. Some of them could text faster than people type on smartphones today. No joke, but T9 wasn't perfect. Sometimes it guessed the wrong word. You try to type good, and it would suggest home instead. You had to scroll through different options to find the right word. But even with these little problems, T9 was way better than pressing each button a million times. Now let's talk about the superstars. The legendary phones that everyone remembers. First up, the Nokia 3310. This phone is famous for one thing above everything else. It was basically indestructible. You could drop this phone on concrete. You could step on it by accident. You could throw it across the room. and it would just keep working like nothing happened. There are funny stories all over the internet about Nokia 3310s surviving crazy things. People joke that if you drop a Nokia 3310, the floor breaks, not the phone. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but these phones really were super tough. This little phone sold over 126 million units around the world. That's more than the entire population of most countries. Next up, the Motorola Razr. This was the cool phone, the fashion phone, the phone that made you feel like a movie star. The Razr was super thin and sleek. It was made of shiny metal. When you flipped it open, the buttons glowed blue or orange. It looked like something from a science fiction movie. All the famous celebrities used Razrs. If you had one, you were automatically cool. That's just how it worked. And then there was the BlackBerry. This phone was different because it had a full tiny keyboard. Not just number buttons, but actual letter buttons like a computer keyboard. Just really, really small. BlackBerry phones were popular with business people because you could type emails really fast on that little keyboard. People loved their BlackBerries so much that some called them crackberries because they were so addictive. There were so many other cool phones too. Sony Ericsson made phones specifically for listening to music. LG made the chocolate phone with cool touch-sensitive buttons for music controls. Samsung made slider phones where the screen slid up to reveal hidden buttons underneath. Every phone was different. Every phone had its own personality. Unlike today, where most phones are just rectangles of glass that look pretty similar. Before there was Minecraft, before there was Roblox, before there was Fortnite, there was Snake. Snake was a game that came already installed on Nokia phones, and it became one of the most popular games in the world. The rules were super simple. You control a little snake made of dots. You move around the screen eating other dots. Every time you eat a dot, your snake gets a little bit longer. But here's the tricky part. You can't crash into the walls, and you can't crash into your own tail. As your snake gets longer and longer, the game gets harder and harder. Eventually, your snake is so long that you have almost no room to move. People played Snake everywhere. On the school bus, in waiting rooms, at boring family dinners when adults were talking too much. Any spare moment became Snake time. Getting a high score in Snake was something to brag about. If your score was higher than your friend's score, you won serious bragging rights. Snake proved something important. You don't need fancy graphics or complicated stories to make a fun game. Sometimes the simplest games are the most addictive. Here's something that might surprise you. Ringtones used to be a huge deal. Your ringtone wasn't just a sound. It was a way of showing everyone who you were. When your phone rang in public, everyone heard your ringtone. It was like wearing your favorite music on your sleeve. In the early days, ringtones were just beeps. Simple beeps arranged to sound like songs. But they were only one note at a time, like playing a piano with one finger. Then came polyphonic ringtones. These could play multiple notes at the same time, like a whole band playing together. It sounded so much more like real music. Eventually, phones could play actual songs as ringtones, real recordings of real music. Having a cool song as your ringtone was the ultimate way to show off. And get this, people actually paid money for ringtones. There were commercials on TV all the time selling ringtones. You could text a special code to a phone number and pay a few dollars just to get a 30-second clip of a song for your phone. Today, ringtones are mostly just the default sound that come with your phone. Most people even keep their phones on silent. But back then, your ringtone was part of your identity. Okay, here's something that will blow your mind. How often do you have to charge a smartphone? Every day, right? Sometimes even twice a day if you use it a lot. Now imagine a phone that only needed to be charged once a week. No, that's not a typo. Once a week. 7 whole days on a single charge. The Nokia 3310 and other button phones could last this long because they didn't do very much. They made phone calls. They sent text messages. They played Snake. That's about it. They weren't connecting to the internet all day. They weren't running dozens of apps in the background. They weren't tracking your location or downloading updates. So their batteries just kept going, going. Today, we've gotten used to charging our phones every night. We panic if we forget our charger when we go somewhere. There are charging cables everywhere, in cars, in airports, in coffee shops. But back in the button phone days, you charge your phone on Monday, and you didn't think about it again until the following weekend. Here's something really different about the old days. Text messages cost money. Each one, individually. Imagine having to pay a few cents every time you send a text message. You'd think twice before sending LOL by itself, wouldn't you? Because texting costs money. People were careful about what they wrote. You couldn't just send 100 messages back and forth. You had to make each message count. Messages had to be short, too. There was a limit to how many letters you could put in one text, usually 160 characters. Go over that limit, the phone would split it into 2 messages, and you'd pay for both. So people got creative with shortcuts. You became you, R became R, before became before. These shortcuts weren't just for fun, they saved space and money. And phone calls? Phone calls were actually important back then. If someone called you, it usually meant they had something real to say. There were unwritten rules about calling. Don't call too early in the morning. Don't call too late at night. And when you talked, you actually talked. There was no scrolling through other apps while on a call because there were no other apps. And then everything changed forever. In 2007, a new kind of phone was introduced. A phone with no buttons on the front. Just a big glass screen that you touch with your finger. The touchscreen smartphone had arrived. At first, some people didn't believe it would catch on. How can you type on glass? They asked. You need real buttons. You need to feel the clicks. But the smartphone could do so much more than button phones. It had a camera. It had maps that showed where you were. It could play music and videos. It could connect to the internet and show you websites. It could download apps that let it do almost anything. By 2012, more people were buying smartphones than button phones. By 2015, seeing someone use a button phone was unusual. By 2020, it was super rare. The button phone era was over. Smartphones had won. So here's an interesting question. When we got smartphones, we gained a lot of amazing things. But did we also lose something? We lost simplicity. Button phones did a few things, and they did them well. Smartphones try to do everything, which can feel overwhelming sometimes. We lost toughness. You could drop a button phone, and it would bounce. Drop a smartphone, and you might crack the screen. Fixing a broken smartphone screen costs a lot of money. We lost that incredible battery life. Button phone batteries lasted for days. Smartphone batteries are always hungry for more power. And maybe, just maybe, we lost some free time. Button phones were easy to put down because they didn't offer much beyond calls and texts. But smartphones, they have games and videos and social media and endless things to look at. It's hard to put them down. Surprising. They want your attention all the time. Completely disappeared. Some companies still make basic phones with buttons. Some people buy them on purpose because they want a simpler life. They want a phone that just makes calls and sends texts. Nothing more, nothing less. Parents sometimes buy button phones for kids who aren't ready for smartphones yet. And some adults keep a button phone as a backup in case their smartphone dies. There's even something called a digital detox, where people stop using their smartphones for a while and switch to basic phones. It helps them take a break from all the noise and notifications. So, do you know about phones with buttons now? Do you understand why your parents smile when they hear an old ringtone? Why they laugh about snake high scores? Why they tell stories about flip phone snaps and text messages that cost money? Those phones weren't better or worse than smartphones. They were just different. They belonged to a different time, a time before apps and social media, and endless scrolling. Technology always moves forward. That's what technology does. The phones of today will probably seem old and funny to kids 20 years from now, but every step forward comes from the steps that came before. Smartphones exist because button phones existed first. We learn how to text, how to call, how to carry technology in our pockets, all from those little devices with buttons. So next time you see an old phone with buttons, don't just walk past it. Pick it up, press a button, feel that click, and imagine what it was like when that little device was the coolest technology in the world. Because it was. And for millions of people around the world, it always will be in their memories